Hey there, it's me again. Still complaining about the office being too stuffy, your boss being a tyrant, or your coffee not being fancy Arabica enough? Fine. Hop into my Doodle-Liner. We're heading to a place with zero AC, but plenty of darkness. Literally. Welcome to 536 AD. Harvard climatologists and Byzantine scholars have officially dubbed it the absolute worst year to be alive, because the sun just turned off. Imagine waking up at 12 noon and it's pitch black outside like a basement, and it stayed that way for 18 months. If you were born in 536, your biggest lifetime achievement was managing to see your own finger at high noon. It all started when a volcano in Iceland woke up in a very bad mood. It spat out so much ash that for 18 months the earth was covered in a haze that blocked out the sun. The historian Procopius of Caesarea wrote, "The sun gave its light without brightness, like the moon, the whole year." This wasn't just a bit cloudy, this was the apocalypse on a budget, 18 months without summer. In Ireland, the bread ran out in the first month. In China, snow fell in August. Temperatures dropped by 1.5 degrees, the coldest decade in 2,300 years. People thought God had simply forgotten to pay the electricity bill. Crops rotted in the ground. Famine hit on a scale so massive that people in some regions, well, let's just say they started looking at their neighbors very carefully. And just when everyone decided things couldn't possibly get worse, the plague of Justinian showed up. It just popped in for a visit and took half the population of Europe with it. So if your Wi-Fi is slow today, think about the guy from 536 trying to light a fire with wet sticks in the permanent frost of an August that never warmed up. Feeling better? Don't relax, we've still got 1347 ahead. Let's fast forward 800 years. Meet Hans. Hans is an optimist, mostly because he survived the spring famine and didn't even eat his favorite cat. But 1347 has other plans for Hans. It all started in Crimea, at the walls of the Kaffa fortress. The Mongols were besieging the city, but when the plague hit their camp, they decided, if we can't take the city, then death will. They started hurling infected bodies over the fortress walls using catapults. The first case of biological terrorism in history. Can you imagine? The surviving Genoese jumped onto their galleys and raced back to their home shores, hoping to leave this nightmare behind. But they didn't know. They had free hitchhikers in their cargo holds. It was the deadliest cashback in history. Alongside the goods, a biological bonus arrived at Europe's ports, wiping out the populations of entire countries. These were the rats, or rather the fleas on those rats, who decided to go on a massive tour of the entire Mediterranean, the Black Death. Your chance of survival? 50-50. Now, some numbers for the statistics nerds. In just 5 years, the pandemic wiped out between 75 and 200 million people worldwide. To give you a sense of scale, up to 60% of Europe's population simply vanished. It's as if someone today just wiped Brazil or half the European Union off the map. Empty cities, abandoned farms, and a terrifying silence. Doctors of that time looked like cosplayers on a budget, masks with beaks stuffed with herbs. They advised treating yourself by pressing dried toads against your tumors. Spoiler, the toads didn't help, but it looked impressive. On the bright side, the social elevator was working overtime. Labor became so scarce that the surviving peasants realized they were the ones calling the shots now. Hans suddenly turned into a high-paid freelancer with a premium rate, simply because there were no competitors left. But what's the point when your home office is a door boarded up from the outside, and the only delivery guy visiting you is the one with a cart for collecting bodies? So the next time you're whining about slow Wi-Fi during quarantine, remember Hans. His only entertainment was counting the spots on his own skin and hoping he'd still be able to see the sun tomorrow. Feeling relieved? Let's move on. If you thought humanity caught a break after the Black Death, let me introduce you to the 1640s. Historians call this era the General Crisis. Imagine the planet having a nervous breakdown everywhere all at once. In Europe, the 30 Years' War is reaching its brutal climax. This wasn't just a conflict, it was total chaos that wiped out up to 50% of the population in parts of Germany. Look at the city of Magdeburg. It went from 20,000 people to just 450. A thriving city turned into a ghost town. But 1648 1648 was the ultimate jackpot of madness. In France, the Fronde Rebellion paralyzed the entire country. In Istanbul, an angry mob strangled Sultan Ibrahim. And in London, for the first time in history, a reigning king, Charles I, was put on trial for war crimes. 3 countries, 3 upheavals, 1 year. It was a planetary scale system failure. And the weather? The sun took a long vacation. During this period, across Europe, rivers turned into icy highways. Back in 1621, the Bosphorus froze so solid that people walked from Europe to Asia on ice. But humans are strange creatures. Even in the darkest years, they managed to hold fairs right on the ice, roasting pigs, playing football, and dancing while meters of ice creaked beneath their feet. On the other side of the world, in 1644, the Great Ming Dynasty in China collapsed. Coups and famine claimed about 25 million lives. In the epicenter of this nightmare in 1643, a baby named Isaac Newton was born. Imagine being born when the world looks like a broken simulation. So if you feel like there's too much bad news in the world today, remember 1648, humanity always survives. Sometimes it just needs a fair on the ice to remember that. Welcome to 1816. Napoleon is finally defeated, borders are open, and people worldwide are looking forward to peace and a good tan. But in April 1815, Mount Tambora in Indonesia woke up. It was the largest eruption in the last few centuries. The roar was heard 2,000 kilometers away, and so much ash was blasted into the atmosphere that it literally blocked out the sun. The result? 1816 officially went down in history as the year without a summer. Temperatures plummeted globally. Imagine our hero. He puts on his best summer breeches and his red scarf, steps outside in July, and walks into a blizzard. In the United States, June snowstorms buried houses, while in Europe, freezing rains turned fields into useless swamps. Prices for grain and oats skyrocketed. One of the last great famines of the Western world had arrived. People had to make a choice, feed the horse or eat it. The horses lost that round, but it was this very desperation that kickstarted progress. German inventor Baron Karl von Drais, tired of walking past eaten horses, created a running machine, basically the wooden skeleton of the first bicycle. So if you like cycling in the park, thank that Indonesian volcano. And that's not all. While the world was freezing, a group of Brits led by Lord Byron got stuck in a Swiss villa due to endless rain. To keep from going insane with boredom, they held a ghost story contest. It was there that 18-year-old Mary Shelley came up with the idea for Frankenstein. Shelley created a masterpiece just because she was stuck at home in bad weather. What's the most useful thing you've done during your most boring quarantine? Welcome to 1918. World War I is finally winding down, soldiers are returning home, and the world is ready to exhale. But instead of the long-awaited peace, humanity gets the Spanish flu. Spoiler alert, this virus killed more people than bullets, shells, and gas attacks combined. Estimates suggest that between 50 and 100 million people became victims. And here's a fact that will blow your mind. Half of the American soldiers who died in Europe fell not to enemy bullets, but to the flu. The virus was more effective than any army. By the way, why Spanish? Spain had nothing to do with it. They were just neutral, and the only ones not lying in the press about the scale of the disaster. Everyone else was in everything is fine mode to keep up military morale. 1/3 of the world's population got infected. What's more, the virus didn't hit the weak, it hit the young and healthy. Their own immune systems reacted too violently and literally destroyed their lungs. In some cities, heavy fines were issued for not wearing masks. The treatments back then were peculiar. People were often given horse-sized doses of aspirin, which caused many to die faster from poisoning than from the illness itself. Hans, with his dried toads, would surely feel like a professor of medicine looking at this medical chaos. Our Doodle-Liner is returning to 2026. Take a look at your office. Vending machine coffee? It's fine. Boss is grumpy? It happens. But at least there's no volcanic ash outside, no killer fleas hiding in shipping containers, and neither soldiers nor famine are trying to steal your breakfast. We like to think of history as a graph of endless progress, where every year is better than the last. But in reality, it's a graph of survival. We are only here because Hans, Mary Shelley, Isaac Newton, and millions of others heroes managed to walk through actual hell and never lost their will to live. Appreciate what you have. And if you want to know which year historians call the next candidate for the title of the worst, subscribe. We're already warming up the engines of our Doodle-Liner and preparing the next route. See you in the next timeline. Bye!